So, for those of you who insist that we need to move forward and stop talking about slavery, making films and documentaries about slavery, because it just angers you or ignites a fire in you because you have to reflect on the past, or it's just too much and that we've moved on. I say to you, while you would like for us to forget, your colonizers worked tirelessly to keep you in bondage by any means necessary. They even help you by creating laws that would erase or create revisionist history so that you can continue on living in the life of of the experiment of the boiling frog. Do you know about that story about the boiling frog? Do you know that if you put a live frog into cool water and gradually turn the temperature up, the frog will not realize it's actually being cooked? But congratulations. Your colonizers would love nothing more than for you to close your eyes to what's happening right in front of your face. I know, I know. And that's no way to start a show. So I'm going to start over and I'll be right back. Well, hello, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. So very happy to be with you on this fine Saturday. Let's see. It's in the 90s, I'm sure. The temperature is going to start to drop because we're moving into the September month, which we are so grateful for. So, what is the temperature right now? Anybody? It's 96 degrees, still hot, and it's humid. Not fair at all. So, for all of you who are joining me live today, when you could be outside sweating in this heat, I appreciate you for joining me. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, y'all. So many things I want to get into. But first of all, I want to know how you're doing. How's everybody doing? Everybody all right? Okay, good, good. If not, I hope things get better for you. Shout out to all the Virgos. Is it Virgo season? I think so. Yeah. Okay. I always tease that. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Virgos, except I have some cousins that are Virgos that I love, and I just appreciate their personality. And I have a close friend that's a Virgo. And of course, one of my favorite rappers of all time is a Virgo. So, there are a handful of Virgos that I rock with. But overall, Virgos, y'all a different breed. I'm just saying. How y'all feel about Virgos out there? Share your thoughts with me. So what I'm saying is, if I wasn't already committed, I wouldn't date a Virgo. That's all I'm saying.com. Y'all can tweet that. But anyways, yeah. So happy birthday to anybody who's celebrating the birthdays today. I have a niece who just turned 14 today. So congratulations, baby girl. I hope to hang out with you a little later and celebrate your life. And also, I have another niece who turned 16 yesterday, and she's having her sweet 16 today. And I'm going to try to make it to turn up with her too. So I got a busy Saturday as well. And I get it, you guys. A lot of people that do watch the show, they watch the replay on YouTube or Facebook. They always tell me, I wish it was at a different time or maybe a different day, because Saturdays is everybody's go day. This is, most people are off on the weekend and they get out and go. And I get it. But this is what works for me as far as being able to be live. So again, I'm always grateful for those of you who, have the time, don't want to get out in the heat, or just, really pull up for your girl, for this news and information and the little levity and all the things that happen on In Your Ear Radio. And for those who watch later, I appreciate y'all too. The main thing I ask is that you guys comment. You can say something later. Shout out to Mr. Shabazz, who always, watches later and adds to the conversation. I appreciate him for that, and other people as well. But in the Facebook world, we would consider that a top fan. So I appreciate those who watch and then comment on anything that they, are listening to. You might not agree, or you may disagree, you may agree, or you just want to add to the conversation. Please do add to the chat, because that's what I look forward to, interaction and just hearing your perspective. Because, most of this is mine. Aside from the facts, I do have a perspective, a point of view, and but we're all different, and I like to engage in that way. So I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Anyway, your girl be having brain fog. If y'all don't know what that is, it's just like you just forget certain things or you just can't remember certain things and things of that nature. And last week, I know y'all see me today. I'm really here live and in color. I'm not clear. I got a friend who likes to call me clear because she got a suntan. But anyway, but so yeah, last week I said that I was going to be gone this weekend because it was Labor Day weekend, and I can't get my mind off the fact that this is not Labor Day weekend. Up until maybe Friday, I was still thinking I need to plan and do things because I do have plans for that weekend. So I got a little caught up, gave you some early Labor Day history, and told you I wasn't going to be here. Charge it to my head and not my heart, y'all. I'm here though. I'm here next weekend for sure. Labor Day weekend, I will not be live, but I will return the following weekend, and we'll have a lovely interview for you with the young lady that I'm excited to have on our platform as well. So yeah, not bad on that. Anyway, what are y'all watching? Are y'all watching anything good and interesting, fantastic? I haven't been able to really watch anything. It's been a very, very busy week, and when I do have downtime, I'm just finding other things to do besides figure out what's to watch on TV. I'm good with the reality shows. I used to be one of my, what do they call it? One of your guilty pleasures. But it's just so pathetic now. You can't be my age still banging with people. You know what I'm saying? Make it real. If it's gonna be reality, make it real. Most people don't hang out with people they don't get along with. So why are we calling this a reality show? And if you're not really a housewife, anyway, I digress. But I committed to a book that I didn't finish, but our book club meeting is today, and the book is Church Girl, and it's by Sarita T. Lyons. If you guys are interested, I was kind of taken aback from it because it. Our genre, we pick different genres each month, and this one was spiritual. So I was thinking of spiritual in the sense of self-development, just enlightenment, encouragement, affirmation, and things of that nature. But the person who won the drawing, because we all throw a book in the drawing, was a book about religion. And it happens to be totally on that. So it's centered around a woman who has her convictions being a Christian. And I'm still inquisitive. I still like to see different perspectives of people and their lifestyles and their way of thinking and how they came to be. So I'm not biased to religion of any kind, but it was just really like preaching to me in a way that I couldn't relate to. But if you're a stone cold Christian woman, or maybe even a man, you could probably, gather more from it than I did. But anyway, that was a book. I didn't finish it. I'm sorry. And also, I think it's a documentary that's coming out on Netflix. I am pinning that to watch this week if I can get to it, about Jussie Smollett. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he's an actor, but he became even more famous when he said that he was robbed in Chicago years ago. They convicted him of it, then they turned it around, and just it was a whole lot of mess. And so there's a documentary. I don't know if it's by him, but I'm just interested in that. So I'm going to check that out if you guys are looking for something to watch. Maybe you might find interest in that. But yeah, it made me think about, when I'm thinking about things to watch, I thought about The Purge, because I feel like here in the United States of America, there is a purge going on. If you guys aren't familiar with that movie series, it's basically centered around your government giving the citizens of this country a pass to go out and take the lives of other people, just 24 hours. So you can do as much murdering and savagery things that you want to do within 24 hours and not be held accountable, not face any law time. You're not breaking any laws for 24 hours. And I feel like that's the kind of world we're living in right now in the United States of America. And so I might go back and watch a few of the Purge series. It can get a little gross. I'm not really into gruesome, but a lot of times I watch things to see what's in the minds of people, because a lot of TV is not only propaganda, but it's also a blueprint or an outline of what's to come, or what we're experiencing now, because we have art imitating life and life imitating art. But a lot of what I watch, that's what I'm looking for. Like I said, when I watch the sci-fi movies and things of that nature, I'm looking for demographics. How many Black people, how many old people, young people, fat people, skinny people. I'm looking at all those things, just society wise, just to see what does man see in our future. So whatever. What are y'all watching? Let me know in the chat. So shout out to the Virgos. When I was looking up birthdays for today, come to find out, today is a late great NBA guard champion for 2000 to 2002 and 2009 to 2010, MVP in 2008, 18-time NBA All-Star Olympic gold medalist in 2008 to 2012, Kobe Bryant's birthday. So congratulations to him. I'll go ahead and give a, when people say happy birthday, when it's a person's birthday, when they're deceased, they say it would be his birthday or would be her birthday. It's still their birthday. This is the day they were born. Nothing has changed. They're just not present in a physical form. So it is still his birthday. It's his heavenly birthday. So I just want to give him an applause for just being born and impacting so many lives in maybe, more positive ways and more so. Coincidentally, I didn't know this at the time that I put this shirt on. I was sitting in the dentist office this morning waiting to be called. Got there an hour early. Ooh, somebody would be so proud of me. Only reason why I was an hour early for my appointment is because I thought it was at 8 o'clock and it was at 9 o'clock. So I sat patiently, continuing on with my research to prep for today. So it all worked out. Ain't God good? He works in mysterious ways sometimes, but we get it done. Won't he do it? But anyway, this shirt that I have on now, if I reflect back on the day we learned the news that Kobe Bryant, and I think it was 9 other people, including his daughter, who had died in a helicopter crash in California, I had this shirt on. I was in Maryland visiting my cousin and one of my nieces who lived in. I was actually linking up with her and her mom at a mall in Maryland and waiting for them. I was looking at some monitors, and that came across the screen that Kobe Bryant had died. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, it was just like weird. It was so surreal. But I remember having on this. I had on a pair of jeans and some knee-high boots. Today, not exactly the same, but I had on this shirt. And so I just think that's so ironic that it was unintentional, but just considering that this is his birthday and this was a shirt I had on as a memory of the day that he passed away, it was kind of interesting. And I have experiences like that a lot, where I could be talking about something, or I posted something a year ago or a few years ago, and then I happen to be having a exact or similar conversation in that same outfit. So I don't know if it's an energy thing, like energy just pulls it in the conversation, or experiences or what, but it's just weird. I don't know. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting to mention that. So happy heavenly birthday to Kobe Bryant. Yeah, and to everyone celebrating a birthday. I was just reading something interesting. We know there's a lot of trickery going on in these politics. People who have a lot of kicking, they trying to get it, get ahead of the voters and cheat people out of their votes by trying to redraw the maps for vote, for gerrymandering, so that the majority of the votes are shifted towards the Republican Party, because as you know, in 2026, I think, people are tired of this mess and they're ready to flip the house, right? So they know that. They know they effed up and they're trying to keep this president in for a third term or indefinitely. And a lot of them kiss the ring, bow down, they obey, they're cowards and all of that. But, they're doing a lot of redistricting and redrawing. And what I found interesting is like, these particular people, we'll call them colonizers, have a history of drawing things. They like to draw. I don't know if they're good at it, but they like to do it. I was reading where there's I think it's in, after African Union is calling to correct a map that is drawn. So if you look at any map that has all the countries on the planet Earth, they have them drawn out in their shapes. You look at the continent of Africa, and it's actually represented smaller than a lot of the continents that is actually larger than. And so to this day, I mean, this is, since I guess maps have been drawn, I don't know, historically, I didn't go and do the research to learn how long this has been, because it could have been they went in and modified it over the years, that it originally was drawn right. But Africa is represented as being one of the smaller continents. And again, that's in comparison to China. I'm thinking of other states or countries that fit into that. I had a photo I wanted to show you guys, and of course I don't have it now, but they're demanding that it be drawn correctly. And it's just ironic to me when you think about this, that they would go out of their way to redraw a map to make the continent of Africa look smaller than it actually is. I mean, one of the most highly populated continents on planet Earth. And it just goes to further help you understand that this world dominance thing, this colonizing thing, this whatever it is that they want to do to continue to overpower the people and have control of the people is a part of mental conditioning. They're trying to condition people to think small. There's a meme. I think he got a headscarf on with a perm with some new growth in it. He'd be like, "You got to think big. You got to think big." And so they want us to think small. And so you look at this map and you see that, yeah, they don't even want you to respect the original land where everyone came from. Okay, so I have it here. So I'm gonna try to show you on my screen because I didn't. But if you look here, just try to turn it properly. So you see, this is the shape. That's the continent of Africa. And then you have the United States, you have China, India, you have all these other states put in there. But if you look on a map, you'll see China looks bigger. A lot of these countries that you're looking at that are can actually fit into the continent of Africa, but they make Africa look very small. So it's all, to me, I mean, obviously it was written, it's intentional, the things that they've done over time. And so shout out to the American Union for wanting to, have the truth. We need facts. We don't need to be lied to, right? We want facts. We want facts. All right, let me sip my tea and get my Wendy Williams off. So I want to revisit the conversation we had last week talking about Ice Cube, because the moment I brought it up, folks was like, wait a minute, but nobody say nothing about, what was it, off 227? About Miss, I don't know her name, but you couldn't say nothing about Miss Harper, whoever it was on Living Color. Soon, this lady, she would just gossip, one of the gossipers in the neighborhood, but you couldn't say nothing about this one lady, Miss Somebody. Could nobody say nothing about Ice Cube? And again, I brought him up last week because I was really just mentioning the fact that he was starring in a new movie. It wasn't his movie. He didn't write it, direct it, produce it. He was just asked to take on a leading role, a film that came out in 2020. And it was just maybe a continuation of World of Worlds. And so, that's what the subject matter was about. But I'm gonna put my 2 cents in. Shout out to GB, you got it. Yeah, Miss Jenkins. But nobody say nothing about Miss Jenkins. As soon as I started talking about Ice Cube, that's what I was hearing in my head. But nobody say nothing about Ice Cube. And people get on the defense. And I'm gonna give my man his props. Like I said it before, like I wasn't really going into it. I did just mention the fact that, as far as the politics, I'm looking at you a little sideways. I ain't excluded you from the cookout yet, but I don't like when you get in the way of when people are just trying to maintain democracy. I understand everything he was saying. So I want to get into that a little bit more and talk about that. And so for those of you who are huge Ice Cube supporters, you can chime in. Don't take it personal. I have my opinion. You have yours. We'll state some facts and we'll move on. Like, it's not really about him per se. The conversation is about people who come out, say what they got to say, and don't understand the gravity of what they're saying and doing. Like, I get what you're saying. I understand your intentions, but y'all don't know nothing about timing. That's a rapper too. Anyway. So, it's, that's where I was coming from, not to really just get on him, but since you put yourself in the limelight, then I guess, and then I could be public and talk about him. Ice Cube has done a lot of before he even spoke up during 2020, when he came out and told people to hold their vote and make demands, and the Black Plan. Let me just look up exactly what it was that he called it. But in the middle of an election, we were trying to prevent y'all's current president from becoming president again. He had some things to say. It just wasn't. It wasn't the time. It wasn't the time, because one of the issues was that, for us who knew what was coming, we would have voted in Big Bird. Like, I understand what you're saying, and you're right, but at this point, we have to think about the greater good and come together in unison to know that we have to think about the greater good, because if we don't even have a democracy, meaning if we get this man who is in office in a position of power, then we can't even hold our vote. I mean, we don't have to worry about voting. We can't even protest. We can't speak out against the injustices. We can't demand that the House make changes and things are legislated to benefit us. As you see, he just goes over everybody and executive orders things. Now, executive orders are temporary. But we don't even know if his leadership is temporary. We're hopeful, but as you see, it's happening right in front of us. So just speaking out about him, I have my thoughts and things to say, and I'm just gonna quote someone I was talking to in a group chat who, was speaking up, said he can't really speak for Ice Cube, but he wanted to, put his 2 cents in on the conversation. So I'm going to read, his takeaway, and you guys let me know what you think. He says, basically, I think, first of all, I can't speak for him, but according to what he said regarding the contract for Black people, which is what I brought up, like, why are you bringing up the contract right now? Like, what are we going to do with a contract? And the man, like, just make it make sense, right? And so he said, I'm paraphrasing, I have been trying to get involved and this is what he was quoting Cube saying. He said, and he was paraphrasing what he said. He said, I have been trying to get involved and make suggestions for the Dems for years, especially around the Obama campaign. And he was speaking to that because I said, why are you doing it now? You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of the people who come out and speak out against the Vice President Kamala Harris at the time, or who spoke out against Biden, or just the Democratic Party in general, saying all Black people vote for the Democrats, or we all flock towards voting Democrat and things of that nature. If you would have been talking about both sides, I could respect that. I mean, you can, because, you'll hear the thing like, oh, it's two birds of the same wing, or the two wings of the same bird, and things of that nature. But you didn't hear people going in on y'all's president or the Republican Party, more so wagging their finger at people who vote Democrat. It is true. The majority of people, Black people, do vote Democrat. And it is true that the majority of white people vote Republican, but you don't hear Republicans coming out saying y'all need to stop being followers and blah, 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 and vote Democrat. There's a reason why there's unity in the vote, where the majority of people vote a certain type of way. So, he said he had been trying to get involved and make suggestions for the Dems. This is Ice Cube quoting Ice Cube, especially around the Obama campaign. Nobody gave me an ear. Then when I proposed a contract to the Biden administration, they straight up rejected me. In contrast, when I proposed the same contract to this new administration, which at the time was the Trump administration, they at least heard me out and said they would see what they could do. Yeah, the rejection put a bad taste in my mouth, he went on to say. And even though the other side didn't follow through with the contract, at least they heard him out. Again, I mean, yeah, they, humored you. You know what I'm saying? They was probably sitting there laughing, calling y'all, look at this N-word. Let's hear the, you know what I'm saying? Afro having just humoring him, because they were trying to see how they can use him. This is what I'm thinking in my head when they were trying to think of ways that they could use him. And he said, so he said, what actually hurt was how my own people, after all I sacrificed throughout my career by speaking up and remaining to be a frontline vocalist for our fight, they questioned me and my integrity based on a headline. And so, the headlines are control, they do kind of, they're manipulative. They can kind of narrate the story, and people don't go in and read. They don't go do the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? I'm not expecting everybody to just be world-class scholars and read 3,000 books by the age of 12 like Cat Williams, but a lot of people just read the headlines and then go with it. And I'm even learning that. You just say what the point. My point is in bold print, and then for those of you who really like content, you can go in and listen and read further. So I get it. They went in with a headline. He said, I'm rich. I could just hide behind the gates of my mansion like other celebrities, but I speak out. And this is the response I get from my people. I've always tried to help. And so that was the response. And he was just saying that he just felt like the person I was communicating with about Ice Cube. He said, I felt that, he felt him on that. He said, it seems like our own people attack those who do say the most on our own behalf. They managed to find some fault in them and miss the message, looking for the mess. I felt that. I felt a little a hit dog will holler. I just say that, okay? But I don't, that's not my angle. But like I said, I'm just looking at strategy, and I'm just focusing on the fact that how this is serious to me. You know what I'm saying? We don't have many lifelines. Like, this ain't about politics in the sense of, Republican, Democrat, independent. This is about democracy. And people thought we were just saying that. You can't even tell people die for your right to vote. You can't even say that to people without them saying, oh, that's cliche, that's old. Like, people still dying for your right to vote. There's people still sleeping in state houses that refuse to sign documents to give away their rights and their freedoms, or yours. So we still experiencing that, but it's sad that people will look at you sideways when you tell them about history, the history of people who have fought for you to be in this position. And understand that it's about strategy. You might not get everything you want right off top, but it is about strategy. And he went on to highlight people that fight for us, in this arena, including Cube, LeBron James, Beyonce, Kamala Harris, Jay-Z, Diddy's in here now. I remember the vote or die. And Diddy's suspect right now, but yeah, they were saying he went on to say right before Diddy's downfall, he was suing 3 different corporations for racial discrimination, right? And he also did some not so good things too. And I'm not saying everybody's perfect, because that's the first thing they do when we have people fighting for our liberation and maintaining a level of freedom. You think about MLK, Dr. Martin Luther King, where they wanted to, they listened in on his calls and wanted, I will tell your wife you got a side chick. You know what I'm saying? They tried to find something wrong with people, and nobody's an angel, but there's a fine line between, you doing some wrong stuff and you just doing some stuff that I look, I don't give a damn who you are. I can't rock with you in certain things. He went on to say the list is endless and it's confusing to those who don't know who to believe. And he went on to say, I'll say this, most of the other side are educated, and I'm probably a typo here, but they're educated, and they all say, I don't watch the news. So I would say they're undereducated. He's saying the other side, and they don't watch the news. Right. They just let people tell them what to think and they go with it. And we're going to talk more about this. And I just want to continue on. He said, but the same people can tell you every detailed headline about our Black celebrities who break up for us. And listen, who speak up for us. I'm sorry. That is an issue for me. If you know the stats of your favorite athlete, if you can tell me all the business of the housewives, but when we get to talking about certain legislation, certain bills being passed, how this is going to affect you directly, how it's going to affect others, it's like a snooze button. Like, this isn't the most popular show. People don't want to hear, what I'm talking about day in and out. If I get ratchet, people love my After Dark, and I love it too. But what I'm saying is, people want to break away and be distracted from what's really happening, but this ain't the time. We do have to take a break just for our heart and our lungs and our arteries. We do need to breathe in, breathe out, eat properly, and, relieve some stress. But we cannot take our eyes off the prize. We have to stay focused. So it's just crazy. And I agree with that. Yeah, they can talk about all this other stuff, but then they want to go in on people who are just trying to, to bring about change in the protection of the Black people. So I get it, so I get that part. He went on to say that it ain't a coincidence. The only Black celebrities that they, in quotes, like are those who go against us or those who don't speak up for us. And he mentioned those who he would consider that aren't really fighting, for the freedom, the freedoms that we need in our democracy. He mentioned Chris Rock. He mentioned Kevin Hart, Jason Whitlock, Stephen A. Smith. That man, he is showing and proving how much he loves money. Jesus Christ is not his Lord and Savior. The dollar bill is, y'all. Okay. So ain't none of this a coincidence, he went on to add. And our self-hate is an autopilot and also applauded by these people. They know we feed on drama, so they feed it to us. Another prime example he added is, based on Kamala's, the vice president's resume, she was more than qualified. I mentioned that last week, how she was the only person that had been president or ran for president that had been in all 3 branches of government and worked in those positions. But you had Black men and others saying that she wouldn't be respected as a woman leader and she wasn't Black and all this other stuff. They were talking about her skin color. So yeah, he went on to say that it's embarrassing and we're literally fighting and killing each other over these Popeye's chicken sandwiches. Facts. Okay, it's sad. So yeah, that was his Sunday sermon. And so I just wanted to elaborate more on that because, again, I'm not dogging out Ice Cube. One of the things I had to go back and he did kind of bring me back to focus on who Ice Cube is as a man, like what he brought to the table historically. Like, he ain't new to this. Maybe he's true to this. You know what I'm saying? I think about in 1989 when Ice Cube came out with NWA, he was speaking out for the people when he said F the police. You know what I'm saying? That was very, very radical, and could have risked his whole career, or the entire NWA could have risked their entire career. But it shed light on what was happening in our communities. If you were a Black person living in the urban communities, in the ghetto, in the hood, or just being a Black person, you knew somebody that may have been assaulted by the police unjustly. The police shouldn't be assaulting anybody unless they're defending themselves. You're supposed to just arrest people, apprehend them. You ain't supposed to be beating people's ass and taking their head and hitting them up against the hood before you put them in. But y'all's current president is on tape. He's on tape saying, yeah, when you arrest them, you can rough them up a little bit, take their head and hit them. I've seen that. I bear witness to that. So, that was really like a rallying cry out to our countries and to the world to say, we over here being brutalized by police. Police brutality is real in the Black community. So shout out to that. You know what I'm saying? He didn't have to do that. He could have said that in his house, having tea with his family, whatever it is, what he do in his leisure. He didn't have to go public with how he feels about the police. So I respect that in 1989 in WA. But also in 2013, was it? I want to say this came out, Everything's Corrupt. If you guys aren't familiar with those lyrics, go look it up. I can't play any of the music, or YouTube will mute it out. So go look up the lyrics on Everything's Corrupt. I think that came out in 2013. And then Arrest the President, that came out in 2018. So he's been on that. So he's been feeling away. So I just feel like maybe he just doesn't know enough to really speak out. 2018, okay, Arrest the President, I'm sorry, Everything's Corrupt came out. But he's on he has good intention. I'll say he has good intention, but even just reading the lyrics from Arrest the President, he says, when I drop the mic, I hit the floor like Thor. You can't pick it up no more. Don't even try. Y'all know what it is. I know what it is. Yeah, you know what it is. Get smart for the shit start, for it get dark, for you hit with the pitchfork, better crib walk. That's real talk. Smoke kush, bush, and peel off. And so I want to get into political. He said, like Home Alone, just get into the political content. He said, like Home Alone, F a skull and bones, arrest the president. You got the evidence that NIGGA is a Russian intelligence. Okay. When it rains, it pours. Did you know the new white was orange? He said, boy, you're showing your horns. They're trying to replace my halo with thorns. You so basic with your vape stick. Let's go ape shit in the Matrix. He said, arrest the president, arrest the president, arrest the president. And he keeps going on and on and on. He talks about, just the things that are relative to a certain president. He said, I was free once. Now I'm clinical crazy. He said, you so technical. This was Mexico. Okay. Now, now where are you going to go on by Texaco? F them. Yeah, he spits it. So, he got a knowledge base. So again, I wasn't really trying to throw my mans under the bus, and I'm gonna be like Miss Jenkins, how they, people coming at me, don't y'all say nothing about Ice Cube. But I still feel like, behind the scenes, as I've heard people say, that we need to, take a lot of our actions underground. People don't need to know what our intentions are. So maybe behind the scenes, go link up with some legislators, because you can't just go directly to the president. I mean, in this case, it's a different ball game, but normally go to the legislators, befriend the mayor in your community, befriend the assemblyman and woman in your community, and present your demands to them, backed by your money, backed by the fact that all my fans are with this. And if you don't move this by this such and such date, then we're going to work to make sure that you're not in office again. That's how you do that. You can't just get on social media and tell people to hold a vote and make demands, because people don't know which way to go. They like, tell me where to go, Shout out to E40. So that's all I'm saying. So yeah, but he, all the things he said, be skeptical of anybody, is telling you to vote, and just the things he said, and that's what it was. So I got a little clip from him. Y'all be having a gang of clips, and I don't get to them all, but I'm going to try to today, at least most of them. So I'll play a clip that he back in, what was this, 2020, again, when we were trying to get this man out of office, and just speaking to that. So let me just see if I can get it on here. I got to share my screen so that you guys can hear what he had to say in 2020 that kind of just rubbed me the wrong way. Let me see. like I said, Ice Cube, I'm still waiting for the next Friday. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. So let's see. Hopefully this is the right one. No, it's not. So we're going to close that out. And we'll go to another. And why don't I should have known this was the one from the beginning anyway. So anyway, I'm going to play what he had to say if it will allow me. We won't get to it. Anyway, let me just read his quote because I struggle with this. I need to get somebody else to produce the show to where I don't have to focus on playing clips. But he went on, back in 2020, the kind of things that rubbed me the wrong way was him saying, be skeptical of anybody telling you to vote and not telling you to ask for anything or tell you to just vote and not getting anything for your vote. He said that's not how it works. That's not the process. You don't vote just to vote. You vote because you're getting something or your community is getting something. A lot of people been in place for a long time and we ain't got shiz naive. Shout out to Lil Scrappy that, he said that shit gonna end. He said we're gonna get what we supposed to get, period. And anybody asking you not to, I ask truly, will we ever, we will never listen to that idiot, like them. He said he's not in bed with Steve Bannon or the president. He said you want to vote, yeah. He said, yeah. Yeah, this is what he said. He said, I'm not in bed with none of those clowns, so you can get another booster shot and STFU, shut the fuck up. Yeah. So anyway, I'll just go back to what I said, which is, everybody needs to stay in their lane. Everybody needs to stay in their lane, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But having said that, shout out to Genuinely Pose, who's on YouTube. Thank you so much, sis, for joining us. We just got off Ice Cube. I know you probably feel a way about him. You got your Miss Jenkins on, too. You said, don't say nothing about Cube. Again, it wasn't really about him. It's just overall that, I think people need to stand in lane and let people that know what they're doing do it. Aretha Franklin, you think about all of the people who were entertainers and had the same interests that we have, freedom, justice, and equality, maintaining the democracy. They didn't necessarily come out and say, their whatever they had to say. They let their money speak for them. So they were funding, protests. They were, making sure that people had bail money that were going out fighting for our interests. So in that way, those people who understand the legislation and have those connections and can articulate what to do next and give us real and true marching order, those are the people we need to see front and center. And so that people don't get confused because we still have to be on the same page when we're thinking about unity. I was even having a conversation with someone. It's like, it's mainly in the Black community. Like, even you think about Moms for Liberty, these white women, the mothers of the Confederacy, this is why we have statues everywhere. These white women caping for their white sons and they caping for their white husbands and boyfriends, and they want them to maintain power, even if it means that they lose power because they want them to rule over other people. And so they do what they got to do. They vote how they got to vote. I was at the voting booth where, they had on their MAGA hats and everybody dressed up in red, white, and blue and their cowboy boots. Husband standing, making sure she voted properly. Everybody doing what they got to do. That's why you had campaigns on the vice president when Kamala was running for president saying, you don't have to let your husband know who you're voting for, which I don't think was really a good look because a grown ass woman knows she ain't got to know. And but the thing is, or she ain't got to tell her husband, but the thing is that they live in the same house and they probably have the same interests. And that's just what it is. If you were somebody who thinks that you should not have autonomy over your body, yeah, listen, you're just making bad decisions with your life. And shout out to D.L. Hughley because, another thing is, we have a lot of this trending now with these MAGAs. These MAGAs, they want to, oh my goodness, they want to say they didn't expect what they're getting. They didn't know that they were going to lose their good government job. They didn't know that their farms were going to suffer because they couldn't get undocumented people to work for pennies on a dollar. They didn't know that the price of eggs was not going to go down, that their rent was still going to be high, and that they could be susceptible to the same things that a lot of people that don't look like them, who they were voting against, or voting for, to have whatever they thought was just going to happen to them. Because, there was the Muslims, the Mexicans, the trans, all of these things. They didn't think they were going to be affected by it. And D.L. Hughley was asked, like, do we forgive them now? Like, do you give them a second chance now that they see the light? And yeah, he has something to say about that. So I'm going to play his audio in reference to the question being asked to him.
I understand that you're hardline and you say, look, if you supported them, I'm done with you. But if they genuinely have a change of heart, right? And why wouldn't you want to have more people on your side of the aisle?
I think the one thing that's consistent with people that had changed their mind is there was an inherent selfishness they responded to. When something happened to them or somebody that looked like them or somebody they loved, then they responded. Had it been happening to anybody else, they wouldn't have cared. So if your motivation is that, you have seen it damage people that you love, that's selfishness. And you voted in a very selfish way.
So you're saying there's no room in politics, there's no room for forgiveness.
What I've learned from Republicans is you draw your circles tight and keep it that way. The entire administration now is based on not proficiency, not professionalism, but loyalty. Loyalty.
But to your point, that's Trump, right? And let's say he can't run again. So now you're just talking about whether someone is going to espouse the Republican platform or the Democrat platform, right?
I don't think it's as simple as I was misled. I think you wanted to believe a thing. I think that you didn't care who it hurt as long as it wasn't you. And if it were brown and black people, all the more better for it. You know what's interesting? 2 weeks ago when I was on, 3 weeks ago I was on, you and I and Charles were talking about how Bill Maher was saying, the tariffs didn't hurt anybody and I drive down my street. 3 days later, the jobs report came out and it talked about the people it hurt. Mm-hmm. When he goes to D.C. and he takes over the city under the pretext that it is lawless, who does he use? He's attacking cities with black mayors. You helped do that. He's rounding up brown people. You helped do that. Why would I trust you again? If you can't see the obvious danger to yourself or to the people looking around you, then you're ignorant, and why would I need to be right? I don't have to change your mind. Like Chuck D said something that I'll never forget. He said, if I can't change the people around me, I got to change the people around me.
But let's go back 20, 30 years, right? I mean, there was a time where people changed their mind, right? There was a time when people could say, I thought this, but now I see things differently, and they would go back and forth.
These people had 3 bites of the apple. 3 times. They saw him win an election. They saw what happened then. Yeah. They saw him try to overthrow the government, and they still did it the 3rd time. Come on now. 3rd time's a charm. We're not talking about people. All those people, a great deal of those people made this mistake 3 times. Who the hell makes a mistake 3 times? When 3 times is on purpose.
Listen, first time, shame on you. 2nd time, shame on me. 3rd time, it ain't gonna be no 3rd time. It ain't gonna be no 3rd time. So you knew what you were doing. And again, I think he said it all. Basically, these people were okay with other people being harmed, other people's livelihoods being affected, other people being jailed, other people their Medicaid and medical coverage being taken away and all of those things. But when they were affected, then it was a problem. Then you want to cry and look for someone to have a pity party with you. So I'm with you. I'm with them, DL. And no, I don't even want to have conversations with people like that. But, just getting back to the conversation when we talk about voting, considering what we're going through, considering the climate, considering what's at risk, it's not about Democrat, Republican, Independent, or whatever anymore or right now. Right now, it's about saving democracy, being a free man, woman, and child in the United States of America. And it's really going down, y'all. It's really going down. And it's just unfortunate. Like I said, you have the Moms of Liberty, you have the Mothers of the Confederacy, you have white people who stick together. They vote majority Republican. They stick together to stay focused on their agenda. Shout out to the Southern Strategy and the Heritage Foundation. They have not deviated away from their agenda. They've been doing this for over 50 plus years. The Project 2025 was not written overnight. It's been in the works for 50 plus years. They've been trying to maintain their agenda and bring it forth to light. They're trying to reverse everything that we put into place just so we can be on an equal level, on an equal playing field, I should say. And so, the battle is still here. It's always going to be here. It's never going anywhere. But you see unity in other cultures or races, if I might say. But what about us? What about the Black community? Why do we have to go back and forth? How come we can't go huddle and just have a full-blown conversation like, yeah, I know you're not with the trans, I know you Christian, you don't believe in abortion, yeah, I know you feel like Mexicans taking your jobs, you want to go pick strawberries, why they picking them? Instead of focusing on all those things that really aren't affecting us, some of it, but instead of being distracted by their strategy, they're really good at speaking to these Republicans are men after your own heart, so they know what can affect you. I just quoted a man who said that we with the mess, but we can't really talk serious politics. We can't talk about who's most qualified to lead us and what their interests are and what their policies are and how those benefit us more so than a person who has 34 felonies, like to grab people by the poo nanny and do all of the things that they do that are, forget being illegal, but just morally wrong. And they don't like black people, and their whole goal is to, take down black people. I still got to share this video. I'm sorry, you guys. But, so I get it. And so I was even having this conversation, like, why can't we just have an agenda and just unite and just come together and just say, look, we're going to let bygones be bygones, and we're going to just make sure that we don't have to deal with this man being in office ever again. And so instead of doing that, we bicker about things that are non-factors. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. And it's unfortunate, again, having this conversation with people, even in the prison system. The consensus is when people go into the prison system, there are different gangs of all races, right? You have the white people and whoever they are, the bikers, they have their different sets. You have the Hispanic community, Mexicans, they have their different sets. The Asian community, they have their different sets. And of course, we have black people. We know there's different sets when it comes to the gang community and affiliation. But when they go into that prison system, everybody becomes one as far as an alliance to each other, except for the black community. So you talk to prison guards, you talk to people who have been formerly incarcerated, or you talk to people who have talked to other people who have been incarcerated. And that is a consensus amongst all of these races and nationalities. Everybody can put their beefs aside, except in the black community, not even in the prison system, where you need all the protection that you can. And just imagine how strong you could be, even in prison, if we all came together as black people. Why is it that even in the prison system, we can't get it together? We can't think about the greater good and move past, the things that, not necessarily are going, we're not even gonna be able to do all of these little things that we do in the underworld or whatnot, whatever got some of, the people in those situations, if we don't stick together and protect each other, save each other's lives. I don't know. It's just a lie. And it's just, even with that, we don't have unity. And we need to have unity, because the scary part about us having unity is that it scares them. When they see us coming together and we can bring even other people together, then you get on that FBI list and now you become a threat. I get it. But they've conditioned a whole culture to be fearful of being the stronger power, even though that is our strength. Our strength is in us uniting. That's always been our thing. You think about, I just think about family reunions. This might be a little off topic, but family reunions came about here in the United States because of being enslaved. So at a time when we were actually free, that was something that was developed so that we could reunite with our siblings, reunite with our parents, reunite with our cousins and grandmas and uncles and grandparents. And that's how family reunions became a tradition here. And that unity is important. You think about, you have people all over the country here in the United States, and you're traveling from place to place. You might be sending your kid off to college. You want them to have community and say, you live in Vegas, but now you're moving to Texas. We got a second cousin that lives out there. If you ever need anything, they're just a few miles away compared to, we trying to get there across the country. It's so many things that matter when we come together and unite as a community, that we can help each other. And knowing that in the back of your mind that you always got backup, it ain't no beef, ain't nobody beefing about no small things, makes a difference. And it scares other people because they are the minority when it comes to their power structure. And that's why you hear people, this Republican Party, not wanting people to vote, not wanting people to be politically engaged, not wanting people to read, not wanting people to be woke. Because if they can keep you dumbed down and control you by telling you that this person is better than you, and this person is taking your job, they got you focusing on the wrong things. We so worried about people taking jobs, right? Why isn't the question is, why aren't they going after the people who are hiring these people? So you mad at a person that went and got a job picking strawberries, but your political representative isn't saying, we're going to start cracking down. You ain't heard one politician say that yet. I don't care what side it's on. We're going to start cracking down on people that hire undocumented workers. You haven't heard that yet from any side. All you hear is, we're going to get, work on immigration laws and blase, blase. But you don't hear them saying they're going to start cracking down on people who hire people under the table who are undocumented. Why isn't that the focus? Why are you mad at somebody who is just trying to eat? They're not coming through your back door. They're trying to eat. And, so that's just something to think about. And another thing I was thinking about is you think about these people who get into these positions of power. They have this money, they have a platform. They know that people respect what they have to say, be it true, false, and BS or not. And, it's just unfortunate when they're not, just, they're just not equipped to lead. Like, that's the problem. And shout out to Mr. Shabazz, who was responding to last week's show when we were talking about Ice Cube and just overall in general, how these celebrities come out and talk about, telling people which way to go. And he said, quote, that every time one of us becomes a millionaire, we lose another Black person. What do y'all think about that? Every time one of us becomes a millionaire, we lose another Black person. Yeah, I think that's something to marinate on. I really do. Roland Martin says, you can see before your very eyes that they are trying to defund Black America. Yes, indeed. That is exactly what's happening. If you guys do not watch Roland Martin, you should follow him. You go to YouTube and check him out. Everything that's happening, they're picking it apart layer by layer. In Germany, we talk about the Holocaust, we talk about the Jewish people. But if you learn the history of how they, were able to take over and just rule over people and put people in ovens, they conditioned them to make certain people think that they were better than other people by the color of their eyes, basically, or their religion or their beliefs. And they didn't start with the Jewish people. They started with the socialists, the communists. And then once they pick apart those, then, you got people, yeah, them, then they came for them. And then, there's a story to say when they came for this person, I didn't fight because I'm not trans. When they came for this person, I didn't speak up because I'm not Christian. Then, they just kept going down the list. But by the time they got to you, you didn't have anyone to fight for you. You were on your own. So that's why we got to stick together. And yes, it is, it's rough. It's really rough. But you think about people of the past. You think about Stokely Carmichael. I want to say he was 20 years old when he was succumbed to his death. But prior to that, he was part of the Black Panther movement, feeding the hungry. And he spoke out against poor people in general. Yes, he was a Black man. So, of course, his main interest was his community. But he was speaking out against the people that were poor, saying that we need to fight back as a people, not as a race. It wasn't black, white. It was if you poor, these are the people who are oppressing us. This is why we don't have what we have. So he had to go, right? You think about Martin Luther King, when they finally assassinated him, I'm going to say it was April 4th. It was because it was a poor people's movement. It wasn't just about Black, because they had already convinced the white people, the other side, that, the white people were better than. So white people weren't really concerned about speaking up for us. As a whole, there were some white people who did, of course, but in general, that's their problem. So we're not concerned. But when you say, hey, they pick in your pocket too, it's like, yeah, you're right, And also, even with Malcolm X, just to name a few people, Malcolm X started off being, what they would call radical, speaking out against the injustices done against the Black people. And then when he's talked about taking the country to world court for, violating the civil rights, the human rights, So human means everybody, whatever your nationality, ethnicity is, human rights, he had to go too. You see, when it's just about Black people, it's fine, right? It's just fine. And I'm going to play another clip. And this is from a man, his name is Tim Wise. If you don't know, he's a white man. He's an author, a public speaker. And he talked about the history of whiteness. And I've been saying this on this show over and over again, that race is a commodity. It's a made-up construct built in the 1600s, early 1600s, used to basically divide and conquer. They didn't want white people having any empathy, sympathy, or coming together in unison, understanding that we were all experiencing the same struggle. So what did they do? They made it so that white people felt superior to Blacks and divided them, saying, oh, they're taking your jobs and all of that. But Tim Wise, he articulates it very well. So I want to play his clip. I'm probably won't play all of it. It's about 6 minutes long, but I do want to play some of it. because he got some real spill. He's an activist, anti-racist activist, author, public speaker. Um, so let me see if I can get him on, if I can get this together. So, okay, here we go.
Let me say that again. The whole history of America is the history of rich white men telling not rich white people that their enemies are black and brown. It starts in the colonies of what would be. But remember, during the colonial period, mid 1600s, there was no such thing as white. Some people who find that because they think white, right? But
So I'm playing the YouTube clip with Tim Wise, and there's something that with YouTube, it starts, my system slows down, and I'm sure most of you probably didn't hear it, most of it. It timed me out. But if you can hear me, just let me know in the chat. And if you saw the video, you can let me know. Just in a nutshell, that's why I like playing with these things. When you try to, you know, share something, I don't know, it just freezes up or whatever. But yeah, hopefully you can still hear me. And again, this is Tim Wise just explaining how they made, whiteness a commodity. Reason being is because, the white people were looking around. They didn't, not every white person during that time was was a slaveholder. Some people were just as broke as the black community, except they were not enslaved. They were considered indentured servants. And there's a difference. And we're going to get into that too, because there's a lot of talk about slavery wasn't that bad. And luckily for slavery, people wouldn't be, they wouldn't be well off or better. They would be worse off had there not been slavery, which is so weird to me for people to say that. I heard somebody say, well, you go first then. If you think slavery wasn't bad, you go be a slave. And then, you tell me what you think about it. There's a difference, again, Tim Wise was talking about how, with the white community, there were poor people. There were people who had to work to eat. And they, you think about how credit is in these days and time, that during those times, if they didn't have money, they did work off their labor and they went back home. They weren't stolen from a continent, brought to another continent, forced to, work without pay and under the command of another person for the rest of their lives and for the generations to come. There's a difference, and that's called chattel slavery, which is different from indentured servitude. And this is what the struggle we're having with revisionist history, because these people that want to make you believe that slavery wasn't that bad and that slavery was maybe a good thing, don't know what the hell they're talking about, first of all, and they're not giving you all the details. There's different types of slavery. They'll say, oh, black people own slaves. Globally, again, it was not slavery in the sense that we know as chattel slavery, which is totally different when you are indefinitely. It was hundreds and hundreds of years, generations of being stolen from your family, stolen from your life, and being forced to work forever and being traded off and raped and just that's not indentured servitude. There's a big difference, and don't let anybody try to convince you, oh, it was different and and things like that. So there is a big difference when it comes to slavery, is what I'm saying. And you have so many people that are just trying to poison the minds and condition the mind. They want to bring this into the school system. It's coming to a point where we might have to pull our kids up out of these school systems, or have weekend programs that will help them unlearn all the things that they're trying to condition these kids to believe. But sometimes it's not too bad for them to be present and hear what these people are saying, so that they can come back home and say, look, this is what I'm being taught, and then we can teach them the facts. Because we do need a fly on the wall, per se. But we've been conditioned. I mean, as a society, I'm not just talking about Black people, I'm talking about white people, Asian people, Hispanic people. We've been conditioned to look at people a certain way, to believe certain things, because that's their whole job. They stayed on their job and they continue to stay on their job. You had a whole ass president, Lyndon B. Johnson, our 36th president, who won that seat after the death of John F. Kennedy, the assassination, I should say. He even said this: if you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on and he'll empty his pockets for you. Again, that's your president, y'all's president. 36th president Lyndon B. Johnson said that. So there's always been a Southern strategy. Shout out to the Heritage Foundation, who is the author of this Project 2025. They're staying on their plan. And that's just what it is. They're staying on their plan. And that's, unfortunate that, a lot of people just fall for the okie doke. Shout out to GB, who's in the chat, who was responding to the conversation a little bit earlier, who said they don't realize, they don't see the light. They only realize that they are still in the dark. Yeah, I'm done for praying for them too. He said, I'm done praying for them. No, I ain't got time for him. I don't, like I said, if something bad has to happen to anybody, I hope it's those people. And again, we're talking about the MAGA supporters. Just because you have a change of heart, I don't feel sorry for you, because your heart was, you was good with everybody else being damaged. And so again, the whole point that I'm making here is race is a commodity. They're using it against us as a people. We all need to come together to fight against this system, because we're all going to be oppressed, not just Black people, not just the trans, not just the undocumented, everybody that's not a rich white man, and I'm only talking to those people. I'm not talking to people who are still confused and think that this is okay as long as it's not them. But I also want to celebrate, we talked about birthdays. I also want to celebrate Elizabeth Bessie Coleman, who was actually on this day, August 23rd, in Black history. She was born in the 1900s, and in 1963, she became the first Black pilot, first Black woman, and first Native American woman to hold a pilot's license, facing significant racial and gender barriers. I want to shout her out. She learned to fly in France and returned to the U.S. as a skilled pilot, performing daring air stunts and advocating for aviation opportunities for Black Americans. So shout out to Bessie Coleman. Yeah, that's really something. Yeah, it's just really sad. It's just really sad that we even have to say the first Black person, because there was a time we just didn't have access. We weren't able to do these things, but we do celebrate those who broke ground as soon as the opportunity presented themselves fearlessly. So shout out to you, Bessie Coleman. Also on this day, there was a Houston race riot. Texas is lit right now. Shout out to Gavin Newsom, who is fighting back. And he, like I said last week, you got to get in the mud with them. You got to fight dirty with them. Don't let them reverse it on you. Oh, you doing the same thing they're doing. Yeah, that seems to be how you got to play the game here. They got the game, but the rules are missing. And the rules only apply to those who have morale. And so shout out to Gavin Newsom, who's like, hell to the no. You want to fight? We fighting. Okay. The gloves are off. He said all of this. He said the gloves are off. And, he's still leaving it up to the voters to be able to determine how to gerrymander areas to where in his state of California, that the majority of votes would represent the Democratic Party in certain Republican popular cities within the state. But that's what we got to do. because what are we supposed to do? Just lay down, and just let them continue to bully us and take away our right to vote, our ability to vote. We all have that one thing in common, rich or poor. We only get one vote. We all have that, and they're trying to take that away from us. So that's how you have to fight. You got to fight. You got to fight dirty with those who want to get in the mud. You really got to do it. But also, there was a race riot in Houston. If you guys don't know, on this date as well, shortly after the United States declared war on Germany in the spring of 1917, the War Department rushed to construct two military installations in the Harris County, Texas camp, Logan and the Ellington Field. So on July 27, 1917, the United States Army ordered the 3rd Battalion of the all-black 24th Infantry Regiment to guard the Camp Logan construction site. The regiment, I should say, traveled to Houston by train from their camp at Columbus, New Mexico, accompanied by 7 commissioned officers. Almost from their arrival, okay, again, I'm talking about people who served their country, went to Germany and fought for the United States as Black men, came back to their country. They had because we were still segregated here, we built an all-Black station for these Black men. So almost from their arrival, the presence of Black soldiers was in strictly segregated Houston raised tensions. So, they were still under the Jim Crow laws, they were still in place, and the soldiers were forced to contend with segregated accommodations. So again, these are people who went and fought for the United States and still they didn't put no respect on their names, okay? So they included the drinking facilities. There was still a white-only facilities. These soldiers had to drink out of certain faucets at construction sites while they were working. There was just a lot of taunting, a lot of racial slurs, just people picking on them, just picking at them, not letting them just live their life, drink their water, and mind their business. So prior to the riot, the soldiers were involved in a number of clashes with members of the all-white Houston Police Department. So the police department triggered this, what they're calling a race riot in Houston that happened in July of 1917, excuse me. And so it was the HPD, the Houston Police Department. In several of these incidents, the police assaulted the soldiers, leaving them with lasting injury. So, they would gather, these men, they would gather in their Black community, where they were pushed to, segregated to, they didn't pick it. It was chosen for them. But you know how we do. We make lemon out of lemonade. We make chitlins when they throw us scraps, and now it's a delicacy and things of that nature. So particularly when this whole riot triggered is what they're calling it. It was around noon, August 23rd, again, 1917. Lee Sparks and Rufus Daniels, these are 2 HPD officers. These are Houston Police Department officers, disrupted a gathering on a street corner in Houston's predominantly Black San Felipe district by firing warning shots. So again, these people drinking their water, minding their business in their corner that they was pushed into, and these white police officers just couldn't just enjoy the life of Becky and little Billy. They had to go over here and mess with Black folks that wasn't messing with them. I tell a story every Saturday, and I know it's heavy, but this is what we're experiencing right now. This is still a reality, and we can't just let these stories be buried and not remember who these people are and the cloth that has been, woven that we cover ourselves with. This is what's been happening. So they went over there and just shot warning shots for what? Because these people were gathering, minding their business. You ain't like that, what they over there doing. Oh, no, they look too happy and content. So again, this was a Black community since after the Civil War, excuse me. And people started to flee. Obviously, somebody shooting made you look, they go running. And so they went after these people, busting into people's houses. People like, I don't know where they at. And so they just went on a rampage, finally capturing some of the people who took off running from the gunshots, beating them and then arresting them, okay? And these are soldiers, mind you. I'm still talking about soldiers. These are people that had went and fought for the United States of America and Germany. And this is what they were succumbed to when they came back. These police officers couldn't find crime. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the National Guard. They couldn't find crime. Shout out to y'all's president. So they went and made crime, okay? They created crime. They are the crime. So this was called a riot, and it was 156 soldiers from an all-Black 24th Infantry Regiment that was part of it. That's the United States Army. After they started finding out that the police were beating on their people, they came and gathered up and said, hey, we fighting back. And that's exactly what they did. You know, and it just got really, really bad. It just got really, really bad. There were police officers were police officers were assaulted. Black soldiers were assaulted. Uh, the comrades, people who joined in. There was a fire. 11 civilians died. Um, yeah, and 5 policemen. 5 soldiers also died. Yes, they said some were due to friendly fire. You can go read about that and see if that's true. And yeah, 118 soldiers were tried. After all of this, these police officers started this mess, and they ended up trying 118 of these black soldiers for fighting back. Okay, for fighting back after they had just went after beating and doing what they did to these black soldiers. Um, and 3 of them were court-martialed. Remember, they belonged to the army. So yeah, this was the largest murder trial in U.S. history at the time. There were a total of 110 people convicted. These are soldiers that were minding their business in their black community, minding their black business, and police just pulled up and started shooting because they like, oh, it's a group of 4 or more. It must be a gang, and and bothering them. So yeah, 110 were convicted, of whom 19 were executed, minding their business, and then he succumbed to an execution, and 63 were sentenced to life imprisonment. Okay. Yeah, not until November of 2023. Again, this was in 1917 that this all took place. November of 2023, the Army set aside all 110 convictions. You can't bring people back from death, the 19 who were executed, sadly, and you can't give the years back of those who were in prison, 63 of those. And acknowledged the servicemen had not received fair trials in the racist climate of the time period. Yeah, the Army gave all of them dishonorable discharges, posthumous discharges. That's wild, ain't it? Also on this day, the Nat Turner Slave Rebellion was it's actually the 21st. Forgive me for that. Today is the 23rd, and the Nat Turner Slave Rebellion took place on August 21st, and that was back in 1831. I want to say that one it was 1831. Yeah. So anyway, if you guys haven't heard, if you haven't read Birth of a Nation, I'm not talking about the first one where you had a whole ass president at the time. There was a whole propaganda movie that basically was a promotion for Ku Klux Klan's members, and showing them black people being intoxicated. It was blackface because even then they didn't allow black people to portray themselves. So instead of having black people in film, they would put black paint on their face, which is where blackface comes from, and act like black. You see that in a lot of cowboy movies now, right? If you watch some old cowboy flicks, you think those people are Native American, you think those people are Mexican, but they're white people, and they put a little bronzer on them and they play the role. Okay, same thing. So the original Birth of a Nation was a movie about the Ku Klux Klan, and that president at the time invited Klans members to the White House. Y'all can go look this up yourself. Invited them to the White House for the premiere movie to help them better indoctrinate them further into their hatred and they're wanting to be supreme as white men, whatever that means. Okay, so back to Nat Turner, who led a slave rebellion. He's a Libra, okay? He was born in the 1800s, October 2nd on my mama's birthday. That's what's up, in Virginia. He was born on a plantation of Benjamin Turner. And, this particular slave master allowed him to read. And from what I'm learning is that he wasn't really taught to read. He just was able to look at the letters and pick it up. And that's what he did. So he was very gifted in learning to read independently and write. And so they allowed him to read the slave Bible and learn what he needed to learn from that slave Bible. And they thought he was such a good a slave that they gave him a pass. They felt he was a non-threatening Negro. Shout out to Colin Powell, who called himself that as a general before his passing in that role, a non-threatening Negro. And they messed up and allowed him to go out and teach his other brothers and sisters about the Bible. And so, yeah, and this became a revelation for him. So he started seeing signs reportedly and hearing divine voices, and he was convinced by an eclipse of the sun that it was time to rise up and come. And he enlisted the help of 4 other enslaved men in the area, and an insurrection was planned. It was aborted, originally in August, but it did go back into effect. So it was rescheduled for August 21st. That's when it all went down in 1831. And six others, unfortunately, were killed. Um, well, actually, what they did is they went into the slave master's house and killed six of their family members. One of the slave masters, they managed to secure arms and took their horses and enlisted about 75 other enslaved people in a large insurrection that resulted in the murder of an estimated 55 white people. These are just people just trying to get their freedom. They wasn't, just seeing a bunch of white people pushed into a segregated community, minding their business, drinking their water, and started shooting warning shots. They were trying to free themselves from captivity. Okay. Shout out to Nicole Collier, state representative, only making what, $500-600 a month to write legislation. You have to be an attorney to do that for the state of Texas, who was forced to sleep in a state building. I think it was for 3 days because she refused to be followed, agreed to have the police follow her around because they did not want her leaving the state again, causing another breakage of the decorum, which wouldn't allow them to gerrymander certain communities and force people not to be able to vote for the person they wanted to vote for. So we've been doing this. We're still doing it right now. We've been doing this. But yeah, so he went, there was a rebellion, they fought, people died. They had to gather up 3,000 plus white men in the militia to fight against them, which resulted in the death of over 200 Black people. Yeah. And eventually they did get him. Nat Turner, I think I don't know. He was captured. He was captured 6 weeks after everything, went down. And they said he confessed and they said he was hung. And, I've heard other stories that he was chopped up and eaten by cannibals. And I've heard stories that his body parts were, given as souvenirs to, the savages, people. And so, yeah. So, for people who say, it couldn't be me back in them times, I would have did this, I would have did that. We've always been fighting. It's nothing new. It's been a minority of us in most cases, but we've always been fighting. And the story gets told differently because once we start fighting, we get called certain things like rebels. We get called certain things like we're not patriotic. They have to create new laws. You think about the Black Panthers who walked around with empty guns just to show power and to show that, we're not with the BS. And in California, who was he the governor at the time, Reagan, who became the president, Ronald Reagan, created a law that you couldn't walk around, you couldn't open carry based on the Black Panther movement in Oakland, where these Black men and women were, walking around in self-defense saying, we tired of y'all putting your knee on our neck and we gonna fight back. And so that was intimidating. And so they created laws. The same thing happened with Nat Turner. So once they realized that you teach one man to read and he just, he gonna teach the whole community. So they really, really cracked down on reading. Remember, it was illegal for someone who was enslaved to be able to read and write, but he used the Bible to get through to them. And so they cracked down on reading even further. They made laws even stronger. They just went in, just like we see now, how the laws are changing because of certain things that people do. It's a lot, you guys. I know it's a lot, but it's important for us to know. I hope that it's a form of inspiration to know and understand that this is a forever fight here on earth. This is not heaven, this is earth. And that we always are going to be here fighting against people who are just downright evil. I consider them a virus, literally. Like they just eat away at the goodness of people, and we're constantly fighting not to be plagued by their disease of trying to just rule over people in a savagery way. It's just really, really weird. So, I just wanted to give some recognition to him during his slave rebellion, Nat Turner. Again, Birth of a Nation, there is a movie. Shout out to my cousin who actually starred as baby Nate in a movie, Birth of the Nation, years ago. I want to say it was 2017, back in the day. Anyway, so also, I was reading, we think about all of the things that we do. All of the, you think about the Underground Railroad, shout out to Harriet Tubman. You think about all of the people who paved the way for us to be where we are today. Even in Detroit, there is a underground tunnel and a bridge that leads to Canada. So you can kind of literally, being facetious, but you can throw a rock from the Detroit riverfront to Canada. And I learned that there at the riverfront, there's there's statues of people there that were actually brought there in captivity, but also that was a freedom spot. So people who travel from, if you could get from the South to, what they consider the Midwest to Detroit, Michigan, there is still an underwater tunnel and a bridge that got you right to Canada, and then you were free. Okay, you didn't have to fill out paperwork and file asylum. Once you got there, you just told them what the story was, and you were free. If you watch The Handmaid's Tale, the exact same thing is happening. And the people that are fleeing in The Handmaid's Tale are not just Black people. It's white women, it's white men, it's children. And once they get there, they just say, "Where are you from?" They tell them they're fleeing for asylum from their country due to oppression, and they're straight. So the history is deep, and hopefully they won't take those statues down, because y'all's president is working overtime to take down all the statues that represent anything positive or that shows us in a victorious manner. He's gone into the Smithsonian Museum. He's trying to take that away. And initially, back in 2017, he was supportive of the Smithsonian Museum, and now he on some other stuff. But yeah, there's so much, y'all. But the Southern strategy came into effect because they had to continue to keep us oppressed. And the Southern strategy is just basically, it's employed by the Republican Party, and it's particularly from the 1960s onward, where they aimed at increasing supporting among white voters in the Southern United States by appealing to racial tensions and opposition, in the civil rights advancements. The strategy emerged as a response to the civil rights movement, and the Democratic Party's support for desegregation, leading to a significant political realignment. Okay, where the white conservatives voters shifted from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. So remember, Black people were majority Republican because they voted or they supported people who supported their interests. So there was a time the Republican Party's interests were somewhat in alignment with what Black people were looking, what their interests were in comparison to the Democratic Party. But that shifted when, of course, you had a Democratic president, who signed the Civil Rights Bill. And then, the Republicans, did I get that? I think I just got that story mixed up. But the point I'm making is, I'm sorry, but the point I'm making is, in politics, there are no permanent friends or permanent interests, only there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And the point that I'm making is that at some point we were with the Republican Party until their interests faded. And then we went over to the Democratic Party, who their interests were with us. So it's not about us just being yes men and just following a lead. We're not just sheep. Our interests are in these parties that we go to, because we got to work with what we're dealt, right? When you're playing spades, you got to play by the rules. You can't just make up your own rules. Just, if you got the Joker in there, the Joker beats out the ace. If you ain't no Jokers, then the ace beats out the king. Sometimes the twos are wild. Like, you got to play by the rules, and that's exactly what we do in the same respect. But I just wanted to keep reiterating the Southern strategy, because that's what we're experiencing right now. Like I said, this has been going on. Oh my goodness. Yeah, decades on top of decades. Anytime we make any advancements, then here we are again, fighting to maintain or to get them back. And they are fighting to make sure that we don't. But again, I was speaking on Trump, who, prior in 2017, he liked the Smithsonian Museum. He spoke about it. He supported the Smithsonian Museum. To this day, he wants the Smithsonian gone. He's been quoted as saying that, he's been quoted as saying that the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country, are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. He said that, they're divisive or partisan, and he wants them gone. And he referenced the Smithsonian Museum institutions. He wants anything that would reference slavery gone. He said the Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is and how bad slavery is and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. He said that nothing about success is in this Smithsonian Museum. Nothing about brightness, nothing about future. Okay. Let me just play with what he said in 2017, because it's conflicting.
I'm deeply proud that we now have a museum that honors the millions of African American men and women who built our national heritage, especially when it comes to faith, culture, and the unbreakable American spirit. Pretty comprehensive tour, but not comprehensive enough. Solani, I'll be back. I told you that. Because I could stay here for a lot longer, believe me. It's really incredible. This tour is a meaningful reminder of why we have to fight bigotry, intolerance, and hatred in all of its very ugly forms. The anti-Semitic threats targeting our Jewish community and community centers are horrible and are painful, and a very sad reminder of the work that still must be done to root out hate and prejudice and evil. I'm deeply.
That's what he said in 2017. The Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture, which opened in 2016, he spoke in 2017, and that was his speech. And just on August 19, 2025, he went to social media to say that, yeah, they're too fixated on how bad slavery was. Now, again, I quoted him saying that there's nothing positive, there's nothing bright. I've been to the Smithsonian Museum. It starts off pretty sad because if you think about American history, slavery is white history, okay? And you think about the white history of slavery, you know, it's sad and depressing and angry. You see the people coming in on the ships and you see all of the artifacts and things of that nature. But you keep going up the floors. It shows our plight, how we kept reaching higher and higher. It even talks about hip hop, some of our greatest hip hop artists of all time. It talks about our first Black president, the first, and all of the things, NASA, just anything that we're associated with positively is there. The negative stuff is about white history, which was slavery and the civil rights movement and all the things they did to try to keep their knee on our neck. Again, white slavery is white history. How we persevered, how we survived it is Black history. And he doesn't want people to know what we did to get there. And it's kind of like a blueprint to have that information, you know, somewhere where we can always go and see it for those who may not understand or know how to get out of these situations. But that's what he said right now. And people want to accuse him of having dementia and all these things. And my thing is, no. He just goes whichever way the wind blows. He got people in his ear. He's just keeping up a lot of mess. And so it's really, really sad. And it's unfortunate, you know, because we got so much work to do, y'all. There's so much work to do. And I'm just, you know, it's for those who think time to change, it may look different, but it's still the same. It's still the same. Our hair might look different, the way we live. You know, we've had some laws that have allowed us to, you know, live a different life. You know, we're not certain things, but we're going back to a lot of those things that, you know, oppressed us, you know, trying to force people to stay in marriages, trying to force women to risk their lives to have a child, trying to take away our rights to have birth control, trying to not let people live in peace and not have access to livable wages and to be at the mercy of the rich whites. Even when Nat Turner left, when he fled, during those times when people fled slavery, you know, they had a term for that. They called it drapetomia. Drapetomia. Excuse me. There was a term that they used to label people, you know, aside from being non-patriotic, being a rebel, being a threat, a terrorist, all the things that they call people who fight against oppression. There was actually a clinical term to describe people who tried and did flee enslavement. And it was drapetomania. It's an actual term, drapetomania. And it was proposed as a mental illness in 1851. This was an American physician, his name was Samuel Cartwright, hypothesized as the cause of enslaved Americans fleeing captivity. He said the hypothesis that he said was based on the belief that slavery was such an improvement upon their lives of slaves. it's even hard to read this, but he said that slavery was an improvement on their lives as slaves, that only the suffering from form, you know, this mental illness was causing them to flee. Basically, this was called drapetomania, and they gave it a name for people who did not want to be raped, forced to work, and sell off their children and be brutalized for all of their lives. That was the name they gave it. It's just so crazy when I think about this, because we're experiencing it now. They're labeling people. They call it the woke movement. They're labeling people who are saying hell to the no. You cannot take away our freedoms. They're giving us a name. So when I say things are still the same, it is. I'm, I'm reading this comment in the chat. We were playing Trump. Yeah, because he was reading off a script too. I don't want to play any more YouTube, but shout out to GB who said, I bet he fired whoever wrote that. Facts. Whoever wrote that script. Yes, because he was reading off reading something. But that's what they do. They play you, they lie to kick it. They will you in and make you think they on your side just to get you in. That's all they need, is to get you in, and then they do whatever they want to do next. It's nothing. It's just like luring a baby. You give them candy and they come to you, and the next thing you know, you never see your child again by some predator. That's exactly what this man does, and him, people of the likes. But yeah, so even when we were trying to flee, when I'm talking about Nat Turner and those of us who fight back, who will not be oppressed, who are going to continue to fight, they give us a turn. For those who, they call it a mental illness. Yeah. Drapetomania. That's what they called it. And again, this guy who came up with this clinical name during the 1800s, he said that it was a consequence of the masters who made themselves too familiar with slaves, treating them as equals. So this is what caused these people to start feeling like they need to be on the same level. And they even used the Bible to justify enslavement, that the Bible told them that you have to, make sure that they're submissive. That's another reason why I don't like that word submissive. The Bible, they taught these people the Bible, they said the Bible calls for a slave to be submissive to his master, and by doing so, the slave will have no desire to run away. And he went on to say a lot of jargon. If the white man attempts to oppose the deity's will by trying to make the Negro anything else than a submissive knee bender, which he said the Almighty declared that he should be, by trying to raise him to a level with himself, or putting himself on an equal on equality of the Negro, or if he abuses the power which God has given to him, oh my goodness, over his fellow man, by being cruel to him or punishing him in anger, or by neglecting to protect him for the wanton abuses of his fellow servants and all the others, or by denying him the usual comforts or necessities of life, the Negro will run away. So in other words, they said, if we're treating you good, you'll stay and you'll be submissive. If you're treating you good, you'll run away because you'll see the fruits, the benefits of a good life, excuse me. But if we're treating you bad, you are fearful of leaving. Okay. Some of this stuff is even hard to even regurgitate because it's really bizarre. It makes no sense. But in the minds of these people and those who went on to believe these things, it makes all perfect sense. So we're living in a time right now, before we close out, just to remind you guys, where revisionist history is real. They're taking away shows from PBS and replacing them with dialogue that talks about, Christopher Columbus discovering America. Christopher Columbus never even set foot in America, and explaining in a cartoon why slavery wasn't that bad. And I'll play this before we close out. Just bizarre, you guys. It's just bizarre.
Slavery is as old as time and has taken place in every corner of the world, even amongst the people I just left. Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no? Before you judge, you must ask yourself, what did the culture and society of the time treat as no big deal? Slavery is as old as time and has taken place in every corner of the world, even amongst the people I just left. Being taken as a slave is better than being killed, no? Before you judge, you must ask yourself, what did the culture and society of the time treat as no big deal?
So I played it twice because I needed that to sink in. This is what our kids are listening to and watching and telling and conditioning to believe that slavery wasn't so bad. Let's start the story from the beginning. Remember, they stole people and brought them to the continent and forced them to work, forced them to have sex and bear their babies and feed their the offspring of their wives. And it's just so much. But instead of telling the truth and repenting for their sins and creating making America really great again or greater before they came here, they chose to make people believe that this was okay. This was okay. And I know today this show probably was everywhere. It was everywhere. I had it structured. I had it structured. Sometimes I get distracted when I'm looking at these videos that don't want to play right, and it's very frustrating because everything goes right in the beginning. But um, I just, putting it all in the bag. I just want people to stay focused and not be distracted by the conditioning that they're trying to do and to see what they're doing. That, this is intentional and they keep throwing things at us to make us not see or to keep us focused on their, gosh, what do we even call this? It's devilishment to me, the devilishment. I don't want us to be distracted from that. We're still living, we're still fighting, we're still living in the same time. We're still fighting for the same things that our ancestors did. And I don't want us to be deviate from that and not realize that we have to unite, regardless of what we don't like. We have to unite and fight against this because these people are wicked and they're evil and they're doing anything and everything by any means necessary to keep us oppressed, to take everything away from us. And if they know that we, you know, our interests, what gets us going, what rings our bell is talking about trans and people taking our job and abortion and other people, then that's what they'll keep us focused on. And then we'll lose everything that matters. Okay. But before I close out, I just want to share some good news. If you guys aren't familiar with this person, her name is TJ Mercer. And she is a woman who raises money to help those who don't have what they need. These are kids entering into colleges at HBCUs. And she helps to raise money for them. She goes in and with her team and they decorate the dorm rooms and provide care packages throughout their whole attendance in college. And so, this benefits a lot of kids. You'd be surprised how many kids are unhoused that go into the college system. They're taking away a lot of the funding for colleges. These people, there's kids sleeping in their cars going to college. They still have dreams and hope. Just because you broke don't mean you don't have ambition. So TJ Mercer, she, encourages us all to donate. This money definitely goes to help these kids who are entering into these HBCUs. You have some, as she explained, that are rich. Their parents come in and they hooked up. They got everything they need, and you have others that have nothing. And they're just trying to make it. And she provides a way for them by way of those who help. And it's just a beautiful thing. So yeah, she said under the current administration with the student loans, even Howard students, they're losing a lot of funding. And yeah, so yeah, it's really, really sad. But shout out to her. You can go to YouTube, look up TJ Mercer to learn more about her. And if you want to participate and donate, you can do that as well. Okay, that was enough. All right, so in real life, and seriously though, not playing this time, okay? I know I said this last week, but for real, I will not be here next week, but I will be here the following weekend, and we will have a special guest joining us to talk about taxes and to give her story on, going from a life of crime and drugs, incarceration, to having our own business and helping other people thrive and have their own business. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Let me go ahead and thank you all. Let me get my little applause in for those of you who joined me in the chat. And I love and appreciate y'all for it. I hope you picked up some of what I put down today. I really, really appreciate y'all. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, the rest of your week. Good health, wealth, mental and spiritual and physical. All right. See y'all later.